Buongiorno and welcome to my podcast, My Way of Thinking, or MWAT for short, hosted by me, Lee Greeno, here live from the Man Cave every week. Hope you're all doing well. Weather's gone a bit shitty. I think we've had the last of the summer because currently you probably may hear the rain absolutely hammering down. But that's not going to stop us being positive. That is not going to stop us, and we're going to listen to this amazing podcast. Now, those stories that we have on my what, they're all about amazing human beings, us, and they can I had a frog in my throat then. I was so angry about the rain, it's just, I've lost my voice. Can vary massively with the guests I'll be interviewing, but you'll always be able to take a little bit of our voice or insight into how extraordinary we can all be. You can all be extraordinary. Now, remember 4 rules: 1, no bullshitting; 2, no judging; 3, no negativity; and 4, have fun. Now, today I am talking to Bianca Wulwick. Bianca does a podcast called Don't Kick Me Out. She lives in San Diego, and she's a great girl, and we have a great chat because her husband's in the army and she suffers from imposter syndrome, and this really interests me, so we could dive into that quite a bit, so make sure you're listening because it is an interesting conversation, and we'll try and have a bit of fun as well along the way, so make sure you keep listening in. This is my chat with Bianca. Okay, so welcome to My Way of Thinking. Today my guest is all the way from San Diego. It is Bianca. It's Wulwick, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. How are you, Bianca?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate the blindness into pronouncing names because I always ask, but then I panic, even if I know the pronunciation, because I do have a little bit of a Midwest accent, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the worst thing is I have done it before because I do a radio show over here in the UK, and I had a guest on, and I guessed her surname. And I got it wrong all through the show. And so now I always say, is that how you pronounce it? Very professional. Okay, excellent. Right, we've got lots to cover today, but before we start the show, I always like to just talk about some fun facts or something lighthearted, because the news is quite depressing just recently. And I wanted to talk, I know you currently live in San Diego. How long have you been there?
Just shy. It'll be 2 years in April.
Okay,
so
okay,
yeah, just
cool.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I've got some fun facts about San Diego. You may know them. You may know them. You may not. But we will find out. It's quite funny when I do this with people. Sort of in Taiwan, I did it with a guy, and some of the things he was like, "No, that's not true." I was like, "Google, you liar! The internet lies." Okay. Right, so first one, the first person to drive across the Coronado Bridge, is it? Was Ronald
Coronado Bridge.
Yeah, it was Ronald Reagan in 1969 after it was completed, and he became governor of California. Did you know that?
Yes, that is absolutely true. And the Coronado Bridge, it used to be a toll road. Now it is no longer a toll road. Yeah. But it connects up to Coronado Island, and it's very, very expensive to live there.
Yeah.
So I don't go there very often. Plus, the driving over the bridge freaks me out.
Does it?
Really high up. And any of my friends that live in Coronado, because there's a air station. The air station's on that side. My friends, like, they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I can't get here for like 45 minutes. The bridge is shut down. Someone jumped off." So it's a very interesting kind of creepy bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen photos of it in the past, and it looks massive. It just goes on forever. So yeah, okay, excellent. Right, next one. Cameron Diaz was born in San Diego in 1972. Ever seen her popping around the shops?
No.
She's gone off the charts a bit, hasn't she, Cameron Diaz?
I haven't really seen anything she's done recently.
No. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that one up, but anyway, right now, this one is an interesting one. WD-40 was invented in San Diego in 1953. It took about 40 attempts to perfect the recipe and was first used on the Atlas missile and then rockets afterwards. You know what WD-40 is?
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, there's like a lot of stuff they're testing out here. Who knows?
Is there a lot of creaking hinges and stuff like that?
I mean, because we have like somewhat of a coastal climate, like we have pretty hard water where I live, and also, you know, you have like that sea breeze, and so things tend to rust a lot faster.
That would be it. Right, next one. Fallbrook in San Diego is the avocado capital of the world. Last year, the avocado festival attracted over 70,000 people. Now, this interests me because I've never got on with avocados. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. Actually, I don't know if this is a fact of yours, so I apologize if it is. Jason Mraz, who's that singer, he owns an avocado farm in Oceanside, and we just have the perfect climate for it. Now, however, my husband and I bought an avocado sapling tree. And we were like, oh, we're going to plant it in our garden.
Yeah.
And that thing's dying. Like they're really hard to grow. There's like a myth that you have to like whack it with a machete. I don't know. All I know is that any plants I put in my soil dies. So I have fake grass. I'm going to get fake flowers. It's fine.
Yeah, cool. It's supposed to be really good for you, but they're very bland, aren't they? I don't really eat them over here, but we do get them. Now, this one makes me sick. San Diego's average year-round temperature is 70 degrees. This makes it perfect for surf, of course. Now, me and the family were going to go to California a couple of years back. We never did. It's one of those places I want to visit. Is it true? Is the weather that perfect there?
So, yes. It's normally a nice 75. If you see me looking over a bunch, I have a small puppy in here. And
that's fine. Let's have a look at him. What sort of dog is it?
Hold on. His name's Bourdain.
Oh, nice. Oh, look at him. Bourdain. How cute is he? Oh, my God. How cute is he?
He is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. He's 5 months old, and he's teething on everything right now.
Bless. He's beautiful.
Yeah, so it is typically 70 to 75 degrees year round. But we do get what's referred to as kind of like an Indian summer. Yeah. And it just, right now with the wildfires and all of that, like it was over 100 degrees for the last couple of weeks. So that's not normal.
Yeah. Is it really horrible when it's red hot? Is it quite stuffy?
Well, my power went out because our SDG&E, which is California's electricity company, they like to do this thing called rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
And of course it happened on the hottest day of the year.
Oh my God. Right. Last two more. Now, the Travel Channel named the Whaley House Museum the country's most haunted house. Have you ever heard of this, the Whaley House Museum?
No, but I'm terrified of ghosts.
Right, well, that killed that fun fact.
Well, I mean, when we bought our house, there was this one house that we looked at. My husband was real into it. He's not into ghosts. He's not superstitious at all or anything like that. But I get creeped out. I don't know if it's like the empath in me. And he was like, we got to go in this basement. He's like, I could see myself putting like a woodshed down here. And I just got this like someone's been killed here vibe. And I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, wow. And then finally, San Diego has the most dog-friendly restaurant per capita in the country. The most dog-friendly restaurants. Is that correct? You can take your dog in all the restaurants over there?
Yeah, it's weird because it's technically a health violation, and only because of COVID regulations now. Because you can bring your dog outdoors and they're fine with it. And I come from a rather dog-friendly place before this, which is Denver. So it was weird to just like see dogs sitting at like the bar. Yeah. And at one point I saw a lady bring her parrot and a dog into a brewery. And I was like, this is bizarre.
Wow. I'd love that. I've got 2 boxer dogs. So I'll show you a picture of them actually. And they're beautiful dogs, but I don't know if I'd take them to a restaurant because they'd just be a nightmare. That's a picture of Walter. Can you see it? I bet you can't see it, can you?
Oh, cute.
Yeah, that's Walter, and we've got him and his mother, Alabama. I haven't got a picture. Oh, there's Alabama. Oh,
sweet.
So, yeah, they're beautiful dogs, but I don't know if I could take them to a restaurant, if I'm honest.
Yeah, this one's fine. He'll go. He just wants to sit in your lap, and he wants to meet everyone. He doesn't understand that not everyone wants to meet him.
Oh, bless. Well, I'm sure he'll stop chewing things eventually. You hope.
Oh, I don't worry about it. I'm like, we don't have children, so I'm like, you can chew on whatever you want. It's fine.
There's far worse things in the world. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Bianca, I've got you on here. You've really got an interesting story. Obviously, I always ask people to start off with, tell us a little bit about growing up in America. I guess you were born in America, and sort of where that led. And obviously, you met your husband. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was born in Rochester, Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic. My dad is an electrical engineer, so he was at the IBM campus. My parents are from Northern California. So I lived in Minnesota till I was 10. I grew up ice skating, dancing, cheerleading, but I'm left-handed, so I just had 2 left feet with everything I did. And I mean, I'm sure at a young age that kind of played into what my podcast is about. But I moved to Colorado when I was 10, and then I had 5th grade, which is right before you head into middle school. So everyone had, been friends with each other since kindergarten, and I was the new kid, and that was really weird. And I was an early puberty person, so like I got made fun of. It was just like a whole nightmare. And then of course middle school is like you should just like black out middle school. Like you shouldn't even have to go from your periods of 10 to 13. And then I went to high school. I was newspaper editor in high school, super creative, always doing something creative. Wanted to go to school for art, college for art, because my parents told me I had to go to college. So I said, okay, I'll go as far away from you as I can. And I stayed in state. I went to the University of Northern Colorado, which is a rather conservative, but liberal arts focused college up north in Colorado. And after that, I moved to Denver, dated a guy for 2 years, moved back in with my parents, traveled the country for a job. I was working in marketing, and since then I've worked from startups, kind of millennial hopped my way around. But in college, I was a radio DJ all through college, and I always liked it, but I wasn't sure that there was going to be much of a profession in it, because at the time everything was conglomerating. So I switched from journalism to advertising, and then that kind of turned into marketing. So I've kind of done everything from like working on the client side of things to the brand side of things to freelancing for myself, and to now, I'm laid off based on the pandemic, but I was a marketing director for a branch of a Fortune 500 company. So I've kind of flown close to the sun in my career. And so when I got laid off, I kind of was like, okay, like I've always wanted to be on a podcast, be a podcast guest, or start a podcast. And the podcast kind of came to me where I was like, man, every day at my job, I was thinking they were going to come in and tell me like, we figured it out, Bianca, like pack your stuff, like get out. You're not meant to be here because of imposter syndrome, which is the feeling of being a failure, not being able to accept your own accomplishments, feeling like every single day, like you're a fraud. And it was kind of one of those things that I would talk to my friends about after, a couple of beers or whatever, and be like, yeah, I just don't think I'm qualified. Like, I shouldn't be here, and then we talk each other up, be like, but you have 10 years of experience. Like that makes so much sense. You should be there. So that's kind of all of that. And then my husband and I met in Denver when he was stationed at Buckley Air Force Base on a joint communications billet. He's a lieutenant in the Navy, and never pictured myself being with someone in the military, but that's just kind of how it worked out. And we now are in San Diego, and we're on track to go to Hawaii next. So.
Oh, cool. So, right, let's go back to the start then. So when you first found out about imposter syndrome, because this interests me and I've heard of it quite a bit over the years, how did it affect you growing up? Did you find yourself shy? Did you have a lot of friends? How do you think it affected you when you were growing up?
Well, I've always been like a weird kid. I've always been rather creative. I can remember like my parents going into parent-teacher conferences, and my dad being like, well, she did the assignment. She just did it her way. Like she's creative. And my dad would always refer to me as like one of the most brilliant minds he's ever met. But I also was told I was disruptive and all of that.
Yeah.
So as an adult, I got diagnosed with adult ADHD, and I was like, oh, this is why things were so hard for me as a kid. Like I could have, if my parents had just taken that advice, I probably would have had an easier time making friends and fitting in and that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of imposter syndrome is linked to not fitting in, just kind of feeling like the weird kid. Cause I was a big nerd. I was a newspaper editor. Like I just wasn't like the popular jock kid that like you would invite to the house parties underage. That wasn't me. So I think imposter syndrome, whether or not I knew what it was as I was growing up, I definitely felt it. And then it wasn't until I was in my first job where I had a boss that had said I needed to be wary of how people's perception of me makes him look. And he was, not the greatest boss, but that stuck with me. Yeah, that stuck with me. And then it kind of made me feel like I wasn't meant to be there because it's an advertising agency.
That basically, that just enhanced the imposter syndrome. And what do you think? So this day and age, because obviously at school, I mean, it's similar to here as it is to over there. Obviously, you've got your groups, you've got your in groups, your out groups. Do you think with social media and the way the world is now, people are accepted a lot more? Do you think it's easier or do you think it's harder?
Well, it's I go back and forth on this. I think that the younger generation is pushing for authenticity because like the beauty standard that I had growing up was like this: eat celery once a day and be orange and tan and do all these things to like achieve these beauty standards. And there's now such a push towards body positivity, self-acceptance, mental health. I mean, there's so much more lack of stigmatization on a lot of things that growing up I was told were not normal. Like therapy is not normal. You shouldn't be having to talk with your feelings. Being vulnerable isn't normal. Like those kind of things that were just kind of societally ingrained that have kind of been, sort of the chains have been broken a little bit.
Yeah. I think you say that though. And I think back then, it was rubbish, but it was a lot more straightforward. Now, like you say, people say, be who you be who you want to be, do what you want to do. And then you've got social media and Instagram where you're looking at people who are pitch perfect and have everything they want and look like everything's hunky-dory and you're feeling inferior. So it's almost like that everyone's saying, right, do what you want, be what you want, you can do whatever you want, but you look at social media and it's like, well, actually, no, you need to have a lot of money. You need to look perfect. You know what I mean? It's a strange time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I say that like you only see people's highlight reels. Like Instagram is just a highlight reel. You're not seeing the bloopers. Yeah. And so it's almost somewhat dangerous for some people who are susceptible to thinking that that's their reality. And then suddenly like they get very depressed or they change everything about themselves. It's kind of this weird situation where, I mean, working in social media as in marketing, because I was on the digital side, I started to kind of hate it because it was just like, ugh, like they know so much, but also it's a necessary evil. I have to have social media to work on social media. So I'm okay with it now because we've had the pandemic and you need it to stay in touch. So it's kind of. Okay, Siri.
I think the other thing is as well now, if you're a parent or you have children growing up, it's making them aware of that. You know what I mean? So they're not so focused on it that they don't realise what the real world's all about. I think that's a very dangerous thing. Like you say, I think it's important. It's great in certain situations, but yeah, you've got to be careful. There's a lot of money involved as well, isn't there, on, with social media and things like that. So with imposter syndrome, so did that lead you to is it something imposter syndrome that you can work with therapy, or how can you get through that or get, improve your feelings with that?
Yeah, I think in my conversations with people, I feel like resoundingly the imposter syndrome, or people who have found ways to battle the imposter syndrome, have figured out what they're truly meant to be doing, or they're leaning into themselves 100% and being authentic to themselves. I know for myself personally, like as soon as I got laid off and I started doing things that like aligned with my soul and like what I wanted to do, I felt better. Do I still have it here and there? Yeah. Like there's times where I've got a guest telling me about all the streams and downloads they have, and I'm like, oh, well, we have like 1% of that. Or, you know, there's times where I see, you know, I can kind of see myself kind of comparing my journey to someone else's. And I've had to kind of stop. And in a lot of ways, my podcast has been rather therapeutic. But I was such a huge advocate for mental health, and I didn't actually take that step to like go and get a therapist and talk some things out from my childhood. So I actually have done that now. And that's also made a world of difference, because I've been able to recognize that a lot of things that happened to me growing up actually fed into imposter syndrome. I mean, I read a book that my therapist made me read, and I was like, whoa, like, did this trauma equal this podcast? But I think in general for imposter syndrome, those that have combat it are either working for themselves, or they found the right career, or they found, you know, a working situation that works for them, or they found something that fulfilled them outside of what they're doing or they're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Do you think, so with imposter syndrome, do you think it's something that people can have and not actually realize they've got it? You know, and I would guess you can get quite depressed about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think once you kind of have a negative loop where it's like, I'm not meant to be here, I'm not good enough, I didn't get that raise, you know, I'm comparing myself to Sally over here, and I'm not married right now, you know, or I guess like a good example is like, I have a friend that's on my husband's ship, and when I dropped my husband off for deployment, he had texted me, and he was like, it's just so sad seeing all these people with their families, and like I don't have one to come back to. And I had to play like a little bit of a therapist and be like, it's okay that you don't have that right now, because it'll happen in the future. Maybe not this deployment, but like think about all of the ways that like in the future you can manifest what you want. And it's interesting kind of to see people have this feeling where they're looking around and they're going, oh, well, that person has the 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, all of that, and I don't have that. And it was easy to do that in my career as well, especially in a male-dominated field.
Yeah. I think it's so easy, and I think the work you can be your own worst enemy, can't you? Mm-hmm. You can. Your mind is saying to you, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, and it's almost a battle with your own mind to say, hold on a second, I'm happy as I am. I don't need to have this job, or, you know what I mean, have this car or this amount of money.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a real struggle.
Well, it's a huge flex for me because I got laid off as a marketing director. I'm in a fortunate position that I'm a spouse. I'm an officer spouse. So, you know, my husband was like, take this year and just like spend the time with me and like figure out what you want to do. If you want a podcast, do it. If you want to volunteer for spousal organizations, do it. Like, I just want you to be happy. And he gave me that gift. And so I was able to have all this time with him. I'm stress-free. I wake up. I feel good. I get into a routine. And it's funny when the thought process says, oh, you're unemployed, you're available to do all these things. You want work, you're seeking work. And for me, it's like, I'm only going to take what is going to fulfill me. I'm not going to take something to take a position away from someone else when I have to leave in less than a year. Yeah. And I'm also not going to take this time away from my family that I'm not going to get back. And that's such a place of privilege, but it's something that I've earned. And it was very hard for my friends to grasp that when they'd be like, oh, I see that there's a marketing position. Like, do you want it? And I'd be like, no.
Yeah. I totally understand. I was speaking to someone about on one of my podcasts actually, and she was saying that she was really struggling before lockdown, and it actually saved her because it gave her time to step back from all the stresses and actually just take a breath. You know what I mean? So I know it's been a terrible thing and it's been an absolute nightmare. But for some people, and it's been hard for some people, but for some people, it's actually gave people the option to step back, breathe, and just actually think, hold on, I don't need to be running 100 mile an hour everywhere. I don't have to do this job.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, before the pandemic, I had a full social life on top of everything. Like, I was gone, I stacked my plans, I was back to back, I was, doing all these things to stay busy just on the weekends because I was worried that he was going to deploy and I wasn't going to have any friends. Oh my gosh, sorry, he just
it's all right.
knocked over a Baby Yoda.
That's fine, go on, sort it. I can edit it out. He knocked over the Baby Yoda.
Huh? Yeah, it is a Baby Yoda.
What? Show me the Baby Yoda.
I've been putting I dressed him up like a sailor. I'm in like this full ass cult now.
Baby Yoda.
Well, I bought the hat for my dog because I thought it would be funny as a photo, but the hat's too big, so I put it on Baby Yoda. Well, my dog loves the hat. Doesn't want the Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda scares him. Wants the hat. So
let's completely deviate from what we're talking to. Right, the Mandalorian. Now, over here, so there was a bit of controversy when the Mandalorian came out over here in the UK. It might be different to you, but I'll tell you what happened over here. So Disney Plus was released, I think it was March this year, where you can pay monthly or pay for a year's subscription. I can't remember what it was. And but they wouldn't release it until March, whereas I think you got it a lot earlier over there. And what happened was, I do a film show interviewing guests, and they all started telling me about the Mandalorian, and I said, "Well, hold on, it's not released till March." And if ever there was a TV show that was ripe with piracy, it was the Mandalorian. Do you know what I mean? And you know, and I'm a filmmaker, so I have to say, oh, people shouldn't be pirating things. But people would blatantly just turn around to me and say, I've watched The Mandalorian. You know what I mean? And it's the one show, I think, no one could wait till March. We had to watch it. I actually did wait till March, you know, and I loved it.
Yeah.
What was it like? When did they release it over there?
So this is the whole, like, I think it released in December for us.
Yeah.
And usually there's a delay because like the UK has different copyright laws than we have, and it's usually a delayed release. My friend actually works for Disney Plus, so like I had like the inside scoop.
Yes.
I watched it, thought the Baby Yoda was cute, was sad there was no merchandise, but I was like maybe 2 bottles of wine deep at all times during the show, so I didn't really watch it. Then I became friends with this girl, Diana, the PCS from Italy. She's really into Baby Yoda. She had this Baby Yoda doll. She's like, you should buy a Baby Yoda doll and join these groups with me. because we're both child-free spouses. And I'm like, okay, sure, like why not? Buy the Baby Yoda, still don't remember anything about the Mandalorian. And then Diana's like, you can't come to these like Baby Yoda Zoom chats unless you've watched it. So I was like, okay. So I watched the whole thing. It was a very fast watch. I was done with it within a couple of hours. And I was like, because I've never been able to understand Star Wars, but I understood the Mandalorian. It made sense because it was like more like a Western to me.
Yeah.
So that was easier for me.
Yeah, definitely. What's the matter? Dog disappeared.
Oh no, he's just chewing on a chair leg. It's fine.
If your microphone goes off, we know what's happened. Now, The Mandalorian. What I love about it, and I watch a lot of films and TVs, and I write scripts as well. And people ask me to read their scripts sometimes. And what I love about it, it's perfect. When people write scripts, they put too much dialogue on the page. And that is the perfect example, The Mandalorian. You don't need to say anything. It's the look. Now, with The Mandalorian, you can't even see the expression on his face, but you still know exactly what he's thinking. And he can just say one word, one turn of the head. And I think that when I watched it, I thought that was just sublime the way they did that.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really good, emotive. I mean, but now it's just like the merchandise that's coming out because they're like, whoa, 2 is releasing, so we have to. It's a lot. And like it's everywhere. Like Target has like Baby Yoda hand sanitizers. Party City has like Baby Yoda birthday party stuff. Like it's everywhere. And
Yeah.
so it's a lot. Yeah.
We haven't got that much merch over here. I don't think they're I mean, I don't know if they are selling Baby Yodas, but I haven't seen them everywhere over here. No doubt they will come over. Otherwise, I'd get one for the man cave, put it in here somewhere, because they're so good. But yeah, merch-wise, we haven't.
You should have it. This one's $24.99, and it's.
See over here, over here, that'd be about £80.
Yeah.
Everything's so expensive over here for it. Anything like that. It's so expensive. Do you, with Disney Plus then, is it a subscription basis with yours, or do you pay for it yearly, or how does that work?
I want to say it's $7.99. For me in US dollars, it's relatively inexpensive. And I, for the most part, like I pretty much only turn it on when my friend's 3.5-year-old is on, or I want to watch like a Goofy movie or something that I haven't seen in a million years. It's more of a nostalgia. But it's like we have all the streaming services. I have YouTube TV, which we've had for the last 3 years. We're cord cutters. We don't have cable. We just have internet. And we have Netflix that my in-laws pay for, so we don't pay for that. We just have a side account on it. We have Hulu without any ads.
Yeah.
But it was more expensive to have Hulu Live. So we pay like however much for YouTube TV, but it's great. It's like TiVo. You can watch things live, pause it. It's really awesome. Yeah. And it's been a great product. And then we found out that my phone provider pays for HBO Max. And so I was paying for it. And then I was like, oh, wait, I get this for free. So I have all of the things plus Amazon Prime. So it's like, really, I could stream for days, but yeah, I always feel like there's nothing to watch.
It's crazy over here. We've got Netflix is the big one. We've got Amazon Prime as well. But Apple TV, they released Apple TV, which there's a couple of things on it, but when you compare it to something like Netflix, it's rubbish. And that's really it. They're the three, and Disney. That's it really. We don't get as many as you do over there, like HBO, Hulu, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, but yes, Mandalorian, excellent. Right. Now, you said about your husband, and obviously he's in the forces. How was that adjusting to that? Because I'm interested in how that worked.
So when I met him, he was on a shore command. So the running joke used to be, oh, you're in a landlocked state, because I was in Colorado, which is truly a landlocked state, with the mountains and all of that. And they're like, what is he doing here? The Navy, Colorado? And my husband had a joke that he's like, oh yeah, like at Buckley Air Force Base, there's an underground submarine base, and it goes out to the ocean. It's super private, and people believed him. And because military in Colorado is more Air Force, and he's in the Navy. My husband's from Orange County. He enlisted when he was 18. Went to boot camp, got stationed in San Diego, then Naples, Italy, and then picked up commission and went to officer candidate school. So in order to be able to do that, there's a couple of ways you can become an officer. You can be in for a number of years and that kind of go through a program, get it. You can be enlisted with a college degree, apply for it, get picked up, go to officer candidate school. Or you can go to the academy, then you're automatically an officer. Or you can do ROTC in college, and then you're automatically an officer. So it's interesting kind of how you can become these things. But my husband was enlisted for 8 years, so that's what was referred to as a Mustang. So he has a lot of empathy for his sailors and the people that work for him. And he works in information and security. So it's going to set him up really easily on the back end. I didn't really have a frame of space or mind, but growing up, my mom was always super into my dad's career and always knew what was going on in it. So I just asked the right questions. Obviously, there's operational security, like I can't learn everything. But when we moved to San Diego, it was a really hard adjustment because he'd never been on a ship. Suddenly he has to be gone. We used to have a really weird schedule in Denver where it was 4 days on, 4 days off, 2 days of night shifts. So every 8 days, I had 2 days to myself where I could just, do what I wanted to do with my friends. Yeah. And then I come here and suddenly he's gone for months at a time. Yeah. And then the pandemic happened and they were gone for a really long time. And then there was an incident that happened and this last one. So it's been a really crazy year. And the adjustment, I would say, is just, it's different because there is no difference between myself and an enlisted spouse. The difference is that our husbands can't be friends really, and also that I can sometimes have more power in my voice. So right now I'm working to do a family readiness group for the ship, which is similar to like a school's PTA, which helps people feel connected, because what we realized is the pandemic and a lot of these people being under such restriction as I have been, we don't trust anyone that's not military because we were under such restriction. Yeah. We're scared to kind of reintegrate into going out and doing things. And also the pandemic is so fluid and San Diego's a hotbed. So it's been really kind of a weird year in general being a spouse, but normal deployments, you would man the rails, you would watch them leave, you would, be able to see all these things, have homecoming signs. And this year it's like, no, don't.
Yeah, it's strange. So over there with COVID, how is everything over there at the minute? Are you all in lockdown still or what?
Well, San Diego just partially reopened some more things. Which was weird because we only went down one category tier, which means that we kind of were out of the woods, but not really. And so now, of course, the cases are upticking because they did this thing where they reopened a lot of stuff around the 4th of July. Yeah. And then there was a huge spike. And then they reopened a lot of stuff for Labor Day, and then it spiked again. So for us, for me, like, there's some things I do that make me feel normal. Like I go to the zoo, the San Diego Zoo, which is world famous. It's very safe, socially distant. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. They only open to like 25 to 30% capacity per day. And you have to wear a mask at all times unless you're eating or drinking. And I just power walk it for sanity because I have a +1. So I'll take like a spouse friend and we'll go and it's been really nice because the animals are a lot more interactive and because there's not as many people. So it's been cool. But now I know the zoo like the back of my hand. So the running joke with my friends, with anyone coming to town to visit, is you have to go with Bianca because she goes like twice a week. So she knows the zoo like backwards and forwards. But that's one thing that's open. There's a lot of outdoor dining, but what's crazy is they're trying to open things indoors, and that's just not smart.
Do you have to wear masks over there?
Yes, 100% at all times, unless you're eating or drinking. If you're at a table outside and you have to go to the bathroom inside, you're to wear your mask. They take your temperature before you sit down in a restaurant.
Oh, right. Okay.
It just makes it feel weird.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's similar here. I mean, it's different everywhere, but 1 minute we're told we can do a lot more. So of course everybody goes out and congregates, and then we're told, right, only 6 are allowed to congregate at a time now. So it's just, they're just reacting. The thing is, a lot of people are giving shit to the government and saying they're messing up, but they're just trying to cope with something that's totally unprecedented, isn't they? There's nothing written. We've never had this before. It's just trying to work out what's best, and no one really knows.
Yeah, well, it's quite crazy too, because there's 50 states, and every state is allowed to operate. They're allowed to look at the CDC's guidelines and go, okay, well, we can do this, or we're going to open this way, or we're going to open schools, or we're going to do this. And so because of that, that's what makes the amount of casualties, the amount of sickness, the amount of infection so prevalent, because we're 50 states that are operating this differently. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit, and I really, what did I refer to America as? The Croc sandal of the world.
Yeah, they'll cover your feet, but there's lots of holes in them.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about sort of the government and things like that, they're all in the new race for president and whether Mr. Trump's going to get put back in. What's that? Are you very political? Do you follow it a lot over there, or do you just?
Well, I get occasional texts that say, "Are you going to vote for Biden?" And I go, "Well, obviously, like there's no other choice. We're not a Trump household, and that's fine."
I don't. The only people that are Trump household are the people that vote for him. That I don't think they exist. I mean, do you think he's going to end up running again? Do you think he's going to get it again?
It's hard to say because he makes a lot of promises that unfortunately people fall for, and I don't know.
it's just madness.
It's weird. And it's like, you didn't give me enough government aid and money for me to ever consider that I will vote for you. Sorry.
It's just, you think, from over here, it's, we're looking over there. But I remember when he first went in the running and everyone's like, yeah, Trump will never get in. And I was like, look, money and power can make a big difference. And he's just going to show now that, even though he's thick as shit, he's going to get in power again somehow.
Yeah.
Is it frustrating? Is it frustrating for you in US? Is it?
Yeah, it is, especially when you didn't vote for that person. It's like they tell you, like, as a kid, like, your vote matters, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you didn't vote for him and he got in, but he still did quite a good job, you could say, okay, but the fact that he just seems a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll come off politics. I don't like talking about politics. Someone might be tapping this conversation. Right. Okay. Now let's talk about your podcast. Mm-hmm. So in lockdown, did you start your podcast in lockdown, or tell us a bit about how it started?
Yeah, I got laid off on March 20th, 2020. Yeah. And by March 25th, I had secured the idea, got the cover letter or cover photo art and all of that. I was like, okay, I'm good to go. Had my first guests lined up and kind of launched it. And then it just kind of has gone from there. So I release episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific on the West Coast time. And I've had so many amazing interviews. We were kind of talking about this, how it's like, you're just getting so much like people wanting to be part of it. Yeah. Yes, that I've had to release bonus episodes because I had episodes that were sitting back there that were like my friends that I love them, but I was like, I don't know where to slot this because I have like this person and they're a screenwriter, but then like this is my friend Kara from college. Like I don't know where to put it. So I've been toying around with bonus episodes and releasing them at timely times so that like my friends who interviewed and gave me their anxiety ridden interviews a long time ago can feel special too. But everyone has a really interesting story. There's no bad story. It's just that I'm in a propulsion where I try to kind of figure out like who has the follower numbers that I'm looking for, who's willing to kind of post about it and hype it up because I'm hyping it up. Just like, with this one, I will make sure that all of my listeners have this, interview. Yeah. So it's kind of just just keeping up on word of mouth, but it seems like everyone and their mom right now has a podcast.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, there's some great podcasts and the community is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, on Facebook and that. But I've listened to some podcasts, and I'm not big on myself. I'm not by no means saying this is perfect because it's far from it. But I've listened to some podcasts and I think, Christ, I can't even hear what they're saying. You're like, come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I record through Zoom, and some people do Zencaster. I record through Zoom because it's easiest for me. Like if I have to clip something, I just do it right on my little Apple computer. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. But it's also kind of it's just been interesting because people, like when I first started, one, I wasn't medicated for ADHD, so we went in circles. I was my tattoo artist, and two, I didn't hit my format until probably my 5th episode, and I had a friend that's a radio DJ in Denver. She listened to my first, and she was like, you're kind of polarizing your audience by not saying, like, if you're, making it accessible, like if you're talking about San Diego and I haven't been there, then I need to kind of have a frame of reference for something that would, make sense. So she was just like, stay on topic, try and be as inclusive as possible. And that was really great advice. And I took that and I just kept perfecting it. Yeah. And now it's down to a science where my husband, when he was here, would like sit on the other side and he'd be playing a video game, and he wouldn't have no idea what we're talking about. But then we'd listen and he goes, oh, okay, cool. He's like, you're just on autopilot now.
Yeah. I think it's just getting over that initial fear and anxiety. And once you get into it, like we're doing now, it's just a conversation. But it really annoys me when people talk about equipment. You've got to have this microphone. It's got to sound perfect. I'm like, no, as long as it's, clear enough and you can hear it and it's a good flowing conversation, that's the main thing. Get that started before you start talking about.
Oh, yeah. I bought the cheapest microphone you can buy, and it's fine. And I'm using my Peloton bike headphones. Like this is low budget. Like we're not trying to like, be studio quality here. And I even like will make a joke. Like if I'm introing a podcast episode where their connection or their audio quality was terrible, I'll be like, the audio quality is not the greatest, FYI, but like, the interview is still great. So. Yeah.
Now you just mentioned Peloton. That interests me. Obviously, we do get those bikes over here as well, and it sounds like you are talking about the exercise classes. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
You've made loads of connections. Tell us about that. How you've made connections through that.
So I've had my Peloton bike since March of 2018. We got our tax returns. My husband was like, why are we paying so much in a gym membership? We could just go get the bike. We tested it out. We purchased it that day. Got delivered 2 weeks later.
Because they're expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, but you can finance. So there's a 39-month interest-free financing, which is what we did. Yeah. We didn't need to finance it, but we were like, it's interest-free. Yeah. So we financed it and we just paid it off. And now they just introduced a new bike called the Bike Plus, which I kind of want, but the thought of not having my bike in the interim, I'm like, ugh. So Peloton, it's funny, I'm wearing a Peloton shirt and Peloton shorts right now. And a Peloton
trying to do a sponsorship deal, are we?
No, I just happened to be wearing it because I was going to work out after this.
Yeah.
So I've had the bike for 2 years. Customer service has been great. No issues on it. They do a lot of software updates. There's a lot of on-demand classes. There's something for everyone. They introduced yoga. There's boot camps. Yeah. They're now doing Bike Plus boot camp, which is kind of cool. So you clip out and then you can do boot camp right next to it with some weights and a mat. And I guess like with the Peloton, it's either an expensive coat hanger, or a clothes rack, or it's something that you buy into. And I'm very motivated by money. So like if I pay for a gym membership, then I'm going to go because I'm going to feel guilty if like I calculate out 30 days of a month and I didn't use it for the amount of money that I'm spending. And my gym membership was like $175 when I had it. Yeah. And I was maybe going 5 times a week, but really it just wasn't, it was circuit training and it wasn't really my thing, but I always loved spin.
Yeah.
So I got the bike and I was kind of fair weather with it for a while. And then I found a crew on Facebook that I started riding with because I was moving to San Diego and most of them were in Southern California. Yeah. And I did my 100th ride, then my 150th right before we moved to San Diego. I didn't have my bike for 4 weeks. I went every week to the gym on base where my husband was studying in Pensacola, Florida, and I rode spin classes with active duty military, and I was out pedaling them.
Yeah,
one, I'm from high elevation, and 2, I had a Peloton. So she'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna do a 90-minute class today," and she was like, "But like I don't know if you could like handle it," and I was like, "Bitch."
Yeah.
I kept up the whole time, and I did that for 6 weeks, and then we got the bike back, and I was going to turn 30 last June. So I was like, well, let's see if I can get to 300 rides by the time I turned 30. So this was like April 1st. And then I passed that and I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do 350 by my 30th. Passed that. Then I went to the mothership, is what they call it, in New York City. They have one in London as well. Yeah. And I went with my crew and I rode 550 in studio, met my favorite instructors.
Wow.
Had a great girls' weekend. And it
so
was
you
awesome.
Say crew, are these people you connected through Peloton?
Yeah. We're on Peloton. We're Facebook friends. And
then you arranged
and then we're real life friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that amazing? So through because I always say a lot of people will moan about exercise and say it's difficult, but to find something like that where you've got friendship and exercise, because exercise can be a bit of a daunting task, but actually you enjoy it because you're connecting. Isn't it great when you got an exercise like that and you're enjoying it so much? Yeah,
and Peloton didn't expect this to happen. People they created the subculture. They were like, we're going to do this, whether you like it or not. And then
you're an ambassador. You should get sponsored. You should email them and get sponsorship from them.
We'll see.
See, there's going to be people watching this podcast now and they're going to be right. I want one of those. It's not so big over here. I mean, they do advertise it and they look great. But like I say, they are expensive. But if you do what you've done and make the most out of it and use it, then the money doesn't matter. But like you say, I think some people get them and don't use them to the full potential, and then they end up just like a coat hanger, like you say.
And it's like you can cut corners. Like you can cut corners and buy a different machine, and that's fine. Like you can buy the Bowflex, which is much cheaper. The Bowflex actually runs the Peloton app, so you can do that. But I'll tell you right now, it's just not the same machine. And that's not me. That's not me being an elitist. That's not me being brand loyal. That's me just telling you I've ridden other exercise bikes and they're not the same. And this is a piece of equipment. I mean, it's made of titanium steel. Yeah. It is like if it can hold my husband and it easily adjust between me and not have any issues in 2 years, I mean, it's a great piece of machinery. So I love it.
You are a pro. And also with exercise, I mean, we mentioned about yourself, your imposter syndrome and obviously depression. Do you think that's something that helps as well with that kind of thing, is the exercise?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I feel like when it's part of my routine and I just do it, I feel good. I mean, I was kind of off my game for the last month because my husband was about to deploy. So I was like, well, I'd rather spend the time with him. I don't want to take that 30 minutes away and be on the bike. But even when I was using the bike, it's like you can set your own internal goals. Like I just set a new goal, right? Like this week where I was like, I'm going to ride at minimum three days a week. I'm going to do arms this many times. I'm going to make sure that I ride no matter what and put it wherever I'm doing it, because it's easy even though you have no excuses right there. It's easy to kind of walk away from it. And so setting tiny goals, accountability, a lot of the groups will do like challenges on the app. So if you're like motivated by, beating people on the leaderboard, there's a lot of things you can do. So it's interesting kind of how the community has grown over time and what's changed and how it's become even more connected. But during the pandemic, it's been, I've been grateful for it because it's just right there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, gym's closed. A lot of people who go to the gym all the time, gym's closed. I've got equipment here, but when lockdown and I do a little bit of running, but when lockdown first happened, it's so easy to go, I can't be bothered. We're all going to die anyway. So what's the point in exercising? I'm just going to eat and drink. It was so easy, wasn't it, when lockdown first happened, to get into a rut and just not bother getting up in the morning.
Oh yeah. I had a theory that I was like drinking to time travel, because I was like, maybe if I drink, it'll speed up time.
Yes.
And that was like my first couple of weeks because my husband wasn't here when this all kind of shut down. And now I'm like, well, we'll just give my liver a little break for a bit. Like you've done a good job. Blood panels came back normal, but like, let's not test it. We don't know how long we're going to be in this thing.
Yeah. Right now, so what do you, going forward for the future, what would you like to get out of you? Is it maybe you want to grow your podcast going forward, or is there other things you'd like to achieve?
Yeah, moving forward for me as far as career, I think of my podcast like a snapshot to 2020, pandemic portfolio, but then also with the podcast as a platform for activism. I've done Black Lives Matter podcasts. I've done LGBTQ, IA equality, trans. I've done a lot of things to bring light to equality for all humans, but especially in what's going on right now with Black Lives Matter, that's been incredibly important on how we can talk about ending systemic racism. So for me, I'm outspoken. I'm very loud. I have very big opinions about things. But one thing that's very important to me is that my spousal community is deeply underserved. A lot of them are preyed on for multi-level marketing, and a lot of them are preyed on for being that single stay-at-home mom. The dependa culture is what they call it. And so for me, I'm going to begin volunteering for some organizations in San Diego on base. And when I start doing that, as well as the family readiness group for my husband's deployment, I'm going to be able to use those tools to eventually get a job with either Fleet and Family Support in Hawaii, or find a way to coach spouses in the future, because there's a lot of, especially right now, I'm just seeing a lot of need for that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. It sounds like you've got your hands full, though.
Yeah.
You're going to just carry on with the podcast. The podcast now, are you in such a routine? You're going to stick with it and just keep growing?
Yeah, I think so. I took a couple of weeks off just to I've got a friend staying with me that's recovering from a bariatric surgery. And I also, kind of wanted to take this time while Scott was in sequester to not really bog up the podcast. But it's at a point where once it's in my app, I add an intro to it, and I add whatever sponsorship thing I need to do to it, and then I just create a graphic, and then I schedule that. So it's like real easy for me to set it and forget it, like a rotisserie chicken, which is nice. So I'll continue to work on it. And when it doesn't feel like it's serving me anymore, or serving a purpose, or not going where I want it to, then maybe I'll slow down on it.
Yeah. The good thing is with the podcast, I mean, you say you do yours every Monday. You sound very organized. I'm not organized at all. I just throw them out there as and when. But when I first started doing this, I thought you don't need to put any pressure on yourself. I do it because I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people. And you just let it run. And you know what I mean? It's not like where it's corporate or you've got someone on your back. And that's the beauty of it, really, isn't it? That you can just, run it and see where it goes. Now, if people want to listen to your podcast, where can they listen to it, and what's it called?
It's called Please Don't Kick Me Out. It's available pretty much everywhere. I use Anchor.fm to syndicate. So it's on Apple, Spotify, Google. I don't even know all the other ones, but, you can find it through that. And then we're on social media. We're at Please Don't Kick Me Out on Instagram. We are PDKMO Podcast on Facebook, which you can stay up to date with me, where it releases every week. That's just like a reminder. And also you can email me if you want to be a guest at pdkmopodcast@gmail.com. And then from there, we can work on setting up, getting a questionnaire if that's something you want to talk about. And when I have guests, we really just talk about our failures, our successes, how you've dealt with imposter syndrome, what that really means to you, and then things we're fanatical about and unpopular opinions. And so podcast episodes are anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I listened to a couple of them. I listened to one with an hairstylist woman. I don't know why, though, because I have no hair, but they're really good. I really enjoy them. They sound, it's good because you're just having a conversation and you're not afraid to talk about problems you've had. They're not afraid to talk about issues they've had. So it's nice and honest, which is always nice to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, if you were to give someone advice on, how to beat sort of imposter, you've dealt with this through your life, what sort of advice do you think you could give, Bianca, to people about that?
Yeah, I think the advice that I would give is that it's a lot easier to be yourself, and you're going to attract attract more flies with honey than vinegar. So when you think about just kind of the wanting to fit in and that kind of stuff, there's always that desire as humans, we want to feel connected. But just keep in mind that if you are feeling imposter syndrome, you might want to take a step back, look at your life, your career, what's really giving you those shoulder demons that are telling you you're not worthy of having what you have, that you don't deserve to be there, that you're a failure, you're a fraud, they're going to find you out. And then just a little bit of humility, like give yourself some grace, and also just kind of walk yourself through that worst case scenario. So with me, every day at my previous job, I would get I would get worried or concerned that my boss would come in my office and be like, okay, today's the day. And what was really helpful for me was to say, okay, like, what is the worst case scenario? Oh, I got fired. Okay, well then that happened and I didn't die.
Yeah.
So I didn't die. The world didn't end. Everything's okay. So just kind of, letting yourself explore that worst option, but then not being overly anxious about it, because everything's always going to work out the way it's meant to work out in the world. And I know that's crunchy and granola, but it's the truth. So be yourself, be yourself, give yourself grace, and explore that worst case scenario.
Yeah. And I think that's a great bit of advice. Myself, I think when I was younger, I couldn't see things that way. And everything was, I took everything, I felt like people were having a go at me. I felt like I was a failure and things like that. But what it was myself putting that onto me. As I've got older, like you say now, I'll say, well, no one's died. It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? But when something happens, your initial shock is, oh my God, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Well, no, it's not. You know what I mean? And especially with COVID, I mean, look at people that have lost people through this terrible, so I think you've got to step back sometimes. I think, just hold on a second. How bad is it actually? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you think, hold on, it's not that bad. Okay. Now I always ask my guests for a favorite, just a favorite that anyone can access. So whether it's a film, TV or music, just something that inspires you or something you love. Have you got a favorite for us today, Bianca?
Oh my gosh, yes, I do. So the pandemic's been weird for everyone, but a lot of people have been looking for things to do that are virtual and safe. And I am a huge fan of drag queens. I always say that in a former life, if I'd been born a man, I probably would have been a drag queen. I love drag con culture, RuPaul's Drag Race, all of that. I have a lot of friends who are drag queens in real life. So, and a lot of friends that are LGBTQ plus, IA plus, whatever that acronym, they always add an extra letter. I apologize. I'm an ally for your community, my friends. But so I have a friend, and she's a Peloton friend. She invited me to go to her birthday at, and it was virtual, it was Zoom, it was drag queen bingo. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, I love drag queens, like no problem. And I didn't realize it was Dame Charlie Hides, who was on season, I would believe 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race, and was a split second, like wasn't even on there that long. And so she's an expat with her partner James, and they live in the UK, and she's been doing UK drag bingo at 12 p.m. my time Pacific every Sunday. And she's also done drag bingo for the US at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. You can go to dragqueen.bingo and you can book her. But the really cool thing is that she said goodbye to my husband who was deploying. We all had a little toast. And then my husband booked her for a private drag event for our anniversary because he won't be here. And I get to control that and give out prizes. So it's been really cathartic because I'm part of what is called the bingo bunch now, of regulars who continue to come to bingo each week. There's themes. I dress up. I always make my dog wear a little hat, and it's just it's so much fun. So that's my plug. If you're looking for something to do and you're into drag queens, or you just want to have fun and enjoy your time and listen to some silly jokes that you'll hear over and over and over again, it is dragqueen.bingo, and tickets are $7 and $6 if you're bingo bunch.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of it. Now, when you said this to me, I've never heard of it, so I'll definitely look it up. I don't know about dressing up as a woman, but I do like a good game of bingo.
Yeah, she does the UK version, or the European version, which is all of the balls. I have not played it. I just play the one at 5:30 because that's always been like, okay, it's Sunday, got to get my workout in before 5:30, and then I gotta have make sure I've got my fridge stocked with champagne. Okay, champagne's popped. All right, sitting here. Okay.
So you win prizes.
You do win prizes, yeah. So I have to, when I'm doing it for myself, I have to create the prizes, which is no problem. I'll probably just do Amazon gift cards. But she does, the first prize is $25, second's $50, third is $75, and the fourth is usually $100. So you do diagonal first, and if you get diagonal, then bingo. She verifies it on Zoom, and then if you do that, then it's top and bottom row, and then it's blackout 1 card or blackout 2 cards. It's third and fourth. So it's always just the same format over and over.
This is going to be massive in the UK. I can just see it now. When you get bingo over, now this is a question I want to ask you. When you get bingo over there, do you shout bingo? Because over here we don't shout bingo. We shout house. What do you What do you say over there?
You shout bingo.
Why don't we say? I always upset my wife.
I don't know.
If we go bingo and I'll just shout bingo. Not that I ever win. And she's always embarrassed because here it's like we're embarrassed to say it. So it's like here you are.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I mean, it's easier to say bingo. It's like very much like screaming bomb. You're like, whoa, okay. But when with the drag bingo, she, instead of doing bingo, you'll type in like yes or like Shantae or absolutely or whatever her word of the round is. So it's a hoot. I don't know. It's given me joy because I used to love to go and see my queens out in town that are local, and so it's nice.
Brilliant stuff. Right, now I always ask my guests when we finish is to finish on sort of a poignant story or something they just wanted to get across, or have you got anything you'd like to just finish the interview on?
I guess I mean, to whoever's listening, I hope I wasn't like the most unprofessional person picking my puppy up a million times.
No.
He's going crazy and rambunctious. But I guess my point across is in this pandemic, you can't come out of it any worse than you went into it. So if you're not more creative, more empathetic, you're working on your mental health, doing all those things, you have the gift of time right now. And it can be frustrating and it's a roller coaster of emotions. And I know that, but if I can do it by myself, you can do it too. And just be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to try a new hobby. I don't know, join a Baby Yoda cult, do something, and just stay busy because that's all we can do, and just continue to work on yourselves. And definitely.
Well, that's a perfect note to finish off on. Thanks ever so much for coming on, Bianca. And if ever you want me on your show, give me a shout.
Absolutely.
And also, we'll definitely catch up next year, see how you're getting on, because I just think your podcast is just going to keep growing and growing.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Take care, Bianca.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So that's it. Massive thanks again to Bianca for joining me today, and also you for listening, of course. Make sure you follow the podcast, because over the next coming weeks there'll be some extraordinary interviews. They're just getting better and better, and there may be some famous people popping up. Mark my words. I might even try and get Christopher Nolan in to give him a good bollocking about Tenet. Anyway, the podcast will be streaming on the usual platforms, including iTunes and Spotify. So please leave a rating on there and subscribe. It is important to keep up to date. Follow Facebook, which is My Way of Thinking Podcast. I'm also on Twitter, which is My Way of Thinking, with a 3 on the end instead of a G. Every week I always put the whole conversation on YouTube as well. If you want to find that, it's just My Way of Thinking Podcast. And finally, if you want to get in touch or you think you may be a great guest, then email me. It's mawhatpodcast@aol.com. And in a few weeks' time, I'm going to be doing a Q&A about the podcast and what was put together. So if you have got any questions, fire them along there to that email. Okay. Until next time, God bless. Take care.